When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night. Download a Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
Welcome to Rewind Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John. How you doing?
I'm doing swell.
How's your internet?
Flawless last night. I was not the issue last night, and it was a pretty seamless broadcast. 15 seconds of hiccups?
For the most part, yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I guess maybe some people listening to this might not even be aware, but John had quite the show on Friday on WrestleMania SmackDown in the Post Cafe. People still messaging us about
what can I say?
Your promo on Rogers.
Actually, I've gone looking into alternative plans. I believe I will be exiting Rogers imminently.
Well, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, keep us updated.
Yeah, I'm looking to jump ship, so I'll keep everyone posted. I'm sure they're at the edge of their seats waiting to know my internet service provider plans. But yeah, if you want to hear me share my unvarnished thoughts and Wai laugh at me, rewind to SmackDown from Friday night.
I mean, I was trying to cheer you up, but
I wasn't in a great mood on Friday.
No, but
did I hide it well?
No, and maybe that's why people love the show so much.
I'm an open book. Can't hide my true feelings against an awful company. But yes, that was Friday. That feels like so long ago. What came out of this weekend? What was notable? What was noteworthy?
This weekend? Well, we did our best and worst of show with Poison Rana. That was a lot of fun and very comprehensive, I feel, So
we had 21 categories that we went through, a near 3-hour show, which people seem to have enjoyed. And then we did Likely Unlikely for 2024, while also revisiting our predictions from 1 year ago. So that show is now up for everyone to go check out, whether it be here on the YouTube channel, or you can go on the Post Wrestling feed, ad-free version up at postwrestlingcafe.com, where, yes, I think this was a very, very in-depth, comprehensive look at the year that was 2023, a noteworthy year, as we say every single year with the preceding year. It's very rare we end a year where we're like, could have gone without this year. Ho hum.
Every year has been pretty eventful, sure. I mean, a lot of things do take place, and I imagine 2024 we'll be talking about it as if it was a pretty big year as well.
Mm-hmm. So now another year to go. Have you decided? Are you gonna keep a list this year?
I don't think so. I think it's kind of pointless.
I like your methodology of these categories, where if something should come immediately to mind for you, and that's kind of a good barometer. If someone jumps out at you immediately, go with your gut.
There are certain categories that I feel it might be helpful to have a list. Like some things I just don't think about that often. Like especially the worst of categories. Something has to really be particularly bad in order for me to really remember it. Like worst match, it was actually a bit of a tough one. And that's why I had to do a bit of research to see what other people were saying. And thankfully, EC3 versus Tyrus existed in 2023.
I will say that the last thing on our show was that, unlike previous years, there were very few categories that we were unanimous on. Like, we had a long list of divergent picks in many different categories that we went with, which is always more enjoyable when we're going different directions and not just all on one page. Like pretty much all of them, almost all of them, we had a variety of answers.
And selections spread very much across both AEW and WWE, which are going to be maybe the promotions get the most attention, on a show like this one. But very much split, in terms of the best and maybe even the worst.
Well, I imagine one of the big stories we'll be talking about at the end of 2024 on our year-end show is going to be where all of these shows are going to end up with the WWE Raw rights expiring with the USA Network at the end of September, and AEW's rights with Warner Brothers Discovery ending at the end of 2024. And John Ourand, who is one of the authorities among media reporters, he put out his annual predictions for 2024, his likely and unlikely. And this comes from somebody that, I mean, every year people read these and the assumption is always, you know, he is not just throwing things out without any kind of basis in some of his reporting. But this is not strict reporting. This is him just making his assumptions for the year. And he did talk about both WWE and UFC rights. AEW did not come up in this column. But one of his predictions is that Amazon gets WWE Raw rights and keeps the series on Monday nights. Quote, this hits an audience of young males, a demo where Amazon believes it sees growth in Prime subscriptions. Plus, it gives the company another night of live programming on Prime Video. Now, he also goes on later to write about the UFC rights and stating that he believes ESPN will renew its UFC deal, which expires in 2025. Ourand, he states that ESPN has prioritized renewing the deal and believes that it's going to happen quickly, and then adding the possibility of Disney getting both the UFC rights and Raw, with Raw going to FX. So he's got a hedging his forecast here. Like, Amazon could go to FX, which are two of the prime candidates everyone's looking at. But adding that scenario would become likely if WWE is unable to find enough money from Raw suitors. But it looks like one media company will step up for that property. So I took this to mean like he's looking at Amazon, I would state, as the front runner here that is going to offer the most. And I'm curious, just from your sense, Wai, of if you're looking at Amazon as the richest deal on the table, but it's also one that it's going to be more of a strategy that you will need over several years to grow that audience. You are limiting yourself with exposure, but over the course of a 5-year deal, where is Amazon going to be in 5 years? That's what you're looking at here, and that's what you're weighing. You're weighing dollars and exposure, and hopefully having a sufficient amount of both. But just any of those predictions and the idea of an Amazon and WWE jumping on board.
Well, certainly it would be like a huge shift from maybe the past 5 years, and you know WWE being on a broadcaster like Fox, you know, being in more homes than I think they ever have throughout their history. They'd be now off of Fox, and one of their properties, their longest running property, would potentially not be on television whatsoever. So in that sense, it seems like it would be a huge, maybe philosophical shift. At the same time, I mean, this has always been perhaps the trend, or at least like the sort of forecast of where the industry would be. You know, everybody's strictly shifting to maybe more of an online sort of I don't know, existence. And WWE has set precedent for, you know, being sort of like a futurist in many ways when it comes to, you know, making moves like this. It would be very bold, and I think it would obviously have to be quite lucrative for it to make sense. I could see it happening, and I could see the WWE embracing that continued sort of reputation that they might have, you know, as being one of the first properties on at their scale to, you know, make a strict move like this. Now, how would that change the dynamic of Raw with SmackDown? You know, SmackDown, at least for the better part of the past 5 years, was seen as the A show. I imagine that would only bolster that if it was, you know, the only sort of like television property versus Amazon Prime hosted WWE Raw. I think it would change a whole lot, you know. No longer would you really be talking about ratings. What would you be talking about?
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, you wouldn't be talking about that with Raw. And I mean, these even though like Nielsen is getting more into this game, like getting substantive numbers when it comes to streaming, I think eventually we're going to get a place where there is a bit more transparency, but like we are still in the very embryonic stages of getting there, where it's only been recent that Netflix is now willing to disclose some of that data that they have, all of these streamers have just kept under lock and key for so long. You're right. Like, it's not as though we'd be getting a number every Tuesday at 4:00 about Raw's performance on this. And And that becomes interesting. Like, one thing that I can certainly see that has been a shift in UFC's move of their pay-per-views to streaming is that it does, like, we get some level of numbers, but nothing near the reporting that was done when UFC was on traditional pay-per-view. And that was a big narrative that you attach to fighters of like who was moving the needle, who was not. Like Demetrius Johnson, this guy was a phenomenal fighter, but he was plagued by his lack of ability to draw on pay-per-view. That talking point would not exist today if he was like the current flyweight champion, like Alexandre Pantoja. He would not be doing any better on pay-per-view if we were getting those numbers, but none of that hinders him in terms of his viewpoint of a fighter. And it has shifted. Like, we know who the big stars are in UFC, but we're going off of different metrics, whereas the pay-per-view numbers, it's more of a overall picture that we're looking at and not getting specific month-to-month numbers.
And how does that change?
And same with WWE too, with like their numbers.
Well, exactly. Like, we've seen the shift in pay-per-views. Or I mean, you could argue maybe it's sort of been for the better. Like, they no longer seemingly have the pressure to I don't know, give us 7-hour pay-per-views. And I wouldn't say the quality of these pay-per-views.
They were still doing those in the network era, but that
True.
was when they were trying to just, it was the big number was like number of minutes consumed. And that was one of their big sort of benchmarks to hit. And therefore they would throw a lot of product at you, knowing that these fans are going to watch a 7-hour WrestleMania if we put it on for them.
And they haven't been doing that, but has it necessarily hurt their relationship with Peacock?
No, it is not.
So anyway, I think it would completely shift the way Raw would be produced. You know, you wouldn't necessarily have quarter to quarter sort of peaking types of, formats. Would there be as much incentive to, I don't know, make sure that you have a certain rhythm to these types of shows when it comes to like having big main events? I'm not sure. What exactly is the motivation for an Amazon to own a property like a WWE? Because beyond ratings, it's to get people into the Amazon ecosystem, isn't it? To get people to sign up for Prime so that they can have faster shipping.
These are means to get you to become a Prime subscriber so that you are buying your groceries and buying everything possible on Prime. And that is worth the investment of getting the NFL on Thursday nights. And the idea being that we want a night of the week for all these different audiences. Thursday night is going to be NBA or NFL night. And Monday night, going to our discussion on Sunday, would be wrestling night, staying with Monday night. And I guess less of that sort of thought process, if you're Amazon, of counter programming Monday Night Football, like feeling that they are that Monday night would be wrestling night and we're not directly competing when we're on a streamer. That I could certainly see an FX looking at, stating, if we are investing in Raw to get these rights, why are we putting it up against the biggest juggernaut on television from September to January?
Right. Do you think this maybe, I don't know, lessens the discussion of a potential WBD relationship with the WWE?
Well, it was interesting that WBD did not come up here, at least in John Ourand's forecasting here. I mean, I look at WBD as being a name that is going to pop up in these discussions. And I think we're still waiting to see. So much is contingent on these NBA rights and how invested Warner Brothers Discovery is going to, how much of this NBA package are they going to retain? How much could they give up, and therefore what do they have to spend? And that could become.
When are we expecting that? The NBA
that deal is not up until the next 24-25 season, so at the end of there. But I mean, we will probably get somewhere like a year in advance, like roughly. So I would imagine like around summer, maybe by latest the fall, is when we'll know the NBA rights, which, I mean, WWE, like Mark Shapiro has stated, like we can wait right up until the end of these rights. Like we can go all until September if we have to. Like we can make a deal very quickly, or we can make it now. Like they have positioned themselves that we are willing to talk to anyone. We're willing to move we will be as flexible as anyone needs us to be. They have to hit a certain number. Like Wall Street is expecting a 1.4x increase on this current Raw value. And if they can exceed that, you would be looking at the Amazons that could make up that difference that Wall Street will hopefully reward them for, that they did not with SmackDown.
So a move to Disney and potentially FX would essentially be very similar to what we currently see. It would just be, instead of USA, it would be FX. Correct?
They'd be moving from USA to FX. Yes. And
Okay.
and then you're in with Disney, which then puts TKO, like all their key stuff is, well, at least Raw and the UFC package is under Disney, at least until this UFC deal is up next. And and John Ourand very much sees UFC staying put with ESPN. Both sides benefit from one another, and what the UFC has going for it that I don't see too many people make as big a deal out of is that, yes, they are maybe not your top tier sports, but they're probably like your second tier, I would say. And what value UFC comes with it is that with all of these networks that are trying to get their streaming platforms profitable, here is a product that once a month is putting their best content on pay-per-view that they have a healthy audience that will spend $80 per show on. And that is something that like any sports league would love to be able to do. And it comes with a great value when it comes to, like, it is by no means, just blowing smoke that UFC has greatly helped build ESPN Plus. Like, they are not the sole factor, but they are a big reason ESPN Plus has grown, accompanied with the fact that they have bundled it with like Disney Plus and Hulu. So I think it makes a lot of sense that ESPN would want to retain UFC that is red hot. And
do you know if at least that last word, that ESPN Plus and I guess by extension Disney Plus, are these profitable yet?
No, not yet.
So, and I would ask the same of Amazon Prime and by extension, we know that there are companies that are maybe pulling back now on just putting limitless resources into their sort of streaming platforms. But we're, I guess, still asking the question of who has the most money to burn. And I suppose when you're talking about Disney and Amazon, it's pretty much infinite for both of those companies.
It's pretty significant, but like Amazon, it's very hard to judge because we're not looking at just this one pillar that is Amazon Prime. It's like, if you sign up for Prime, it's like how much, like, the idea is you come in to watch your Raw program on Monday night, but as a Prime subscriber, you are now spending 5 days a week and you're shopping on Prime, and we're making money off of you in so many different ways beyond just looking at this one column that is the streaming service. Like, that's kind of your entryway in the door, and then you're spending money in all these other different ways. But like, you look at Peacock, like this thing is just, it's like 9-figure losses that it just continually they are reporting. And then like, but everyone believes, like, outside of Fox, like, everyone is looking at, well, we have to invest in this because we'll be behind the game because this is where everything is going. But it's a giant cost, and a lot of programmers are looking at, man, we're moving everyone from cable to this, and it's probably not going to be the same level of business that we had on cable, but it's too late to reverse that trend because we're years into this whole process. So anyway, this is going to be a major story to follow all year long, and where Raw ends up. We don't have a ton of news stuff to go through here, but just to give way a sense of dread for Saturday night, this is what is going on Saturday, January 13th in this industry. We have Pro Wrestling Noah running their Korakuen and Hall show with Keno taking on Go Shiozaki, title versus nickname. It is the GHC title up against I Am Noah, Go Shiozaki, who will not be allowed to be referred to as such if he loses this match. Then that night, what a crazy schedule we have. TNA Hard to Kill in Las Vegas for their rebranding and pay-per-view. That will be going on at the same time as a 3-hour block of AEW from Virginia with Collision, followed by Battle of the Belts 9. And that Battle of the Belt show will include Ricky Starks and Big Bill against Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. So if you missed it, on Rampage, they did air a backstage interview with Chris Jericho that, to the best of my knowledge, did not air for the live crowd on Wednesday because, like, there was no mention of this, like, on Thursday or Friday. It aired on Friday, so presumably that did not have a reaction to it. But Saturday, you had Ricky Starks and Big Bill accepting this challenge, And boy, when Chris Jericho's name was brought up, was this audience not happy to hear Chris Jericho's name, and he will be in front of that crowd on Saturday night, and it will be interesting to see what reaction Chris Jericho gets. And just based on Saturday, if you thought like a week taking him off Wednesday and it's a week removed from the whole story and everything, I mean, it did not dampen things, and that was just a name drop. It wasn't even seeing him for the crowd on Saturday.
Yeah. The news is still, I think, incredibly fresh, and it's still incredibly inconclusive, I would say. It's just messy, and I wonder how AEW would continue to handle it. I mean, their philosophy, seemingly, at least on Saturday, was to completely ignore that anybody's been talking about it. And maybe they were willing to test the waters by Friday, but I wonder if the reaction would give them any hesitance.
If you are Chris Jericho, do you say something this week, like something addressing it, or do you just, at this point, you just don't fan the flames or give it any oxygen?
I think no matter like what he says, I think it may be rightfully scrutinized to a level. And strictly speaking, I guess, maybe as his as a PR advisor, I would say no. Speaking as somebody who wants to know more about the story, I would want him to maybe address it, but I don't see that happening.
It's really tough. Like, as you mentioned, like what specifically is Chris Jericho addressing? Like, it's like you're getting in it. It's really tricky, but just based on that reaction on Saturday, I mean, I think you'd be foolish not to be looking at the show on Saturday, and you would have to, like, maybe they went into that pay-per-view and just thinking it's not going to be this thing. It was, and thinking, well, if he misses a Dynamite, things will blow over, but it didn't by Saturday. So anyway, that's our 3-hour block on Saturday night. Then New Japan has Battle in the Valley in San Jose with Kazuchika Okada against Will Ospreay on top. The UFC runs its first card of the year, and all of these cards on Saturday night will be airing against the NFL playoffs, which the Dolphins are playing the Kansas City Chiefs. So maybe Taylor Swift will be part of this Saturday night chaos as well. But man, this is a insane night that is happening. So somehow we are going to have all of this covered on the site. I will be doing Hard to Kill with John Cena, which this schedule on Saturday, it might
be hard to watch. Just because there's so much.
Way is on AEW duty with Kate from Montreal, and Andrew will be manning the site looking at a Battle in the Valley, and Neil Flanagan will be in the mix as well, and Jack Wanon. We've got it's all hands on deck this Saturday.
All hands on deck. And then Kate and Bruce on Friday or Sunday will be talking about Battle in the Valley.
Karen and Bruce.
Sorry,
yes.
Karen and Bruce, correct.
Yes. They will have a show on Sunday going through Battle in the Valley as well. So very, very busy weekend that is coming up. Ratings notes, SmackDown and Rampage both doing very good numbers per their standards on Friday. SmackDown did 2,465,000 viewers and a 0.67 in the demo. So this was their highest number since September 15th, which was the last time The Rock showed up on that show with Pat McAfee. So this was number one among all sports. They beat both NBA games. Significant uptick with women in all the major categories. And the peak, this is always a good trend for your show. The peak was the final quarter for the triple threat match with AJ, LA Knight, and Randy Orton, and the Bloodline run-in afterwards as well. So they were going up against the Knicks and 76ers game, and topped them. The NBA game only did a 0.46. So very, very good number for SmackDown. I would attribute quite a bit of that to The Rock on Monday and people knowing Reigns is going to be on Friday, and whatever his response is going to be to The Rock. I'm sure that played a factor, but obviously based on the pattern too, they wanted to see this main event and the Royal Rumble ramifications that came out of it. So very strong number for SmackDown on Friday. Rampage did 406,000 viewers and a 0.14, which was up 25% from the prior week, and 21% in the demo, their highest number since October the 13th. And 18 to 34, up 37% this week. And this was going against the late game with the Memphis Grizzlies and LA Lakers, which was the more watched game of the two as well. So both shows doing very well by those standards.
Well, look at it. We maybe take a week off from first run programming, and then people are going to come back for a big titled show.
I will do my best every week when we go through these Rampage numbers, but I have like there is no rhyme or reason for some of these Rampages that do well versus ones that don't do well. I mean, this one had the Hardys and Mark Briscoe against Kip Sabian, the Butcher, and the Blade. I mean, is that the actual peak was the ending of Anna Jay and Hikaru Shida, and then a backstage segment with Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. So, I mean, you just don't know what is going to hit. And here, this one does its biggest number since October. So, Rampage is just it's a unique entity out there. Very, very hard to ascertain. And finally, NXT on Tuesday night, we've got Out the Mud challenging the family for the NXT tag titles. Cora Jade against Gigi Dolan. Nikita Lyons, after her big attack, she is going to gain revenge on Blair Davenport. And then it's the start. It's tournament time, Way. It's time for a wrestling tournament. It's the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic as Axiom and Nathan Frazier take on Hank Walker and Tank Ledger and Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin. Can they get along taking on Mark Coffey and Wolfgang?
See, Hank Walker and Tank Ledger are such like name generator names to me. But then you also mentioned Braun. Yeah, but then you also mentioned Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin, and if I didn't know those names as much as I do now, I would have also said those are very much name generator names. So it all to me just comes down to how often you repeat it, and maybe in 2 years' time, Hank Ledger and Tank,
almost Hank Walker, Tank Ledger.
Those will be completely original legends in the game. I bet
legends. Yes.
Yes.
Over to Dynamite on Wednesday. A few more match announcements. So we have the Tornado Tag with Hobbs and Takeshita against Sting and Darby Allin. Sammy Guevara against Ricky Starks. First time ever singles match that they are having. Hangman Page against Claudio Castagnoli, which should be tremendous. And they have added
is that a first time ever?
Hangman and Claudio? Off the top of my head, I think so.
Wow.
Okay. I don't recall.
Let me double check that. But okay,
you check that out.
I don't think so. I don't think we've seen that before.
Well, that sounds like a great match on paper. So Tony Khan has added an 8-man tag and an 8-woman tag. And the idea is they're going to Daly's place, which Tony said is synonymous with the late Brody Lee. And they are putting in 2 of his proteges, Preston Vance in one of the matches and Anna Jay in the other. So Preston Vance will team with Dustin Rhodes, Adam Copeland, and Orange Cassidy to take on Brian Cage, Lance Archer, and the Gates of Agony. This is your random match generator, I would state. This is quite the team on the right.
Very, very random, except for, I guess, like what Tony is telling us, that these are Preston Vance's handpicked partners. So maybe we'll get a promo explaining why exactly he chose these few.
Maybe Preston Vance will explain that one of the seminal matches of his young upbringing in professional wrestling was September of 1998 when Dustin Rhodes took on Val Venus and having to watch his wife make out with this porn star in front and be tortured.
It was pretty yes.
You haven't gotten the breakdown yet, have you?
I have not, no.
Coming up this Thursday on Rewind Away, it is Breakdown.
Thanks for the reminder.
Starring Dustin Rhodes and Val Venus. And then the women's tag, it is Anna Jay, Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale, and Thunder Rosa against Julia Hart, Sky Blue, Saraya, and Ruby Soho. Saraya and Ruby Soho, 2 award winners from Wai Ting on Sunday night. You can go listen to the show to find out what award they were accepting on behalf of.
Yes.
There you go. Dynamite. The homecoming on Wednesday at Daly's place. And Samoa Joe appears as well. So we will see what he has to say. They've got some time now until Revolution, but not a insignificant amount of time. We gotta get this Sting stuff going.
I think it's already been going plenty well, according to at least the ticket on sales. I mean, I think they're past 15,000 now.
Yes, which is like, it was amazing to me that we got that tweet on Friday night from Tony Khan that Sting's wrestling on Saturday in Charlotte.
For the last time.
like, it's so clear, like, you have something here with this retirement tour. And I would state that however many matches he has left, like, you would at the very least just want to like give out dates. Like, he's wrestling. We don't have to necessarily give out the opponents, but it just seems like there is a real appetite for people to see, like, it's the last time. And for some, it might be the first time that they get to see Sting wrestle. And it's definitely going to be your last time. And when you go to these markets, like, you look at some of these numbers, like, it's not like they've got any crazy advances coming up over these next couple of weeks into Revolution. Like, Revolution is the major one, and that is all off of Sting. So, yeah, we will see what happens in the future. But his final match at Daly's Place, Way, can you believe it?
No. What a run.
On to Raw we go at the Moda Center in Portland, Oregon. Over 10,000 tickets out, according to WrestleTix. And tonight, going up against the College Football National Championship game that Way had on between Michigan and Washington. How much did you lay down on number 1 Michigan?
0.
Oh, really? So you went all in on Washington?
Sir.
Yeah.
How much did you put down?
Gonna go coach in the NFL? What are your thoughts?
Hard bog?
Yes, hard bog. He's going to NXT.
It's a bit better than Hank Ledger.
It's going to be Tank Ledger's manager, his new coach, Hard Bog.
What is the name?
Harbaugh.
Okay.
Harbaugh. That's his last name.
Yeah. Did he win? Did he do well?
I think Michigan won. I don't know. I was checking in and out, but
all right. Okay.
It was a football game. It'll happen again next year if you missed it. Drew McIntyre starts off the show. Oh my God, this first segment. So he's in the ring. He said that last week was all or nothing for him. He needed the title and he doesn't have it. He said he cost himself the match by overextending Seth's leg so that it was on the rope. Perhaps they're right. And maybe I am the one holding myself back. Maybe I need to step away for a while. And this crowd does boo. They're like, oh, we don't want you to leave. But he also realizes he didn't lose straight up. It was Damian Priest that cost him the match. And he asks Damian, why didn't you wait till after the match? When I was weakened, you screwed both of us. I mean, again, logical points from Drew McIntyre here.
Very logical.
Damian
Made no
did
sense.
kind of, I mean, he did leave with the briefcase. So, I mean, he didn't completely blow it, but could have had a better plan for last week. Then he notes, maybe I should just leave for 9 years and then I'll get a hero's reception when I come back. And with this, he has heard enough. Out comes CM Punk, and he walks down and calls this Piper country here in Oregon. And he thought for the occasion, Drew might wear a kilt. He says that Piper and me are both known for talking. Is Drew? Because that's all that Drew does. And I admit, from a guy that might talk too much, but he tells Drew, whatever you have to say it to my face. So Drew is ready here. He congratulates Punk because you've lasted over a month here. Because a lot of us in the locker room, we've been betting on when you're going to crash and burn. And I don't care what you said while you were outside of this company. I understand you needed the attention. You needed the headlines. He said, I care about what you do to me personally. And I was one of the few on this roster that has traveled the world with you. I know the real CM Punk, the guy who walked into the locker room and said, as the locker room leader, which is a story that has been dropped several times. You have heard this mentioned.
From who? Anyone? Like a bunch of not Drew, we're saying.
Not Drew. I know I've heard this story before. I don't know if it's been specifically like named as Punk, but I've definitely heard this one about the line of like, who calls himself a locker room leader? You shouldn't have to call yourself the locker room leader. And that's what Drew stated here. He said, at that time, I was young in this business and I needed a leader. And my career was in a tailspin, but you didn't help me. You saw me as a threat. And I spoke to Randy, but Randy was dealing with his own demons. You, Punk, you don't have demons. You are a demon. And then said, I got fired and I had to figure it out for myself. And after 9 years, I'm your leader now, kid. Just a great line. Great promo here from Drew.
So good.
So this was excellent. And
you know, like in particular, like I thought the Randy mention was very interesting because like it wasn't completely necessary for this promo and this interaction between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. But him mentioning, I shared a locker room with you, and I have grievances with anybody who is supposed to be a leader at the time. And I've already addressed this with Randy, and Randy gave me a very valid excuse. Whereas you, CM Punk, you don't have a valid excuse. I mean, at least to me, it just feels like a detail that makes that entire story feel that much more real from Drew. Like, I buy it because there's no real point in perhaps, or at least like making up a small detail like that.
Yeah, and actually, like, the timing of it too is like Punk leaves in January, and Drew gets fired like in June of that year. Like, it's very close in proximity that they both leave the company, and they tie it in here of like how one guy came back and now the other guy's trying to do the exact same thing. So Punk's rebuttal said, "I never called myself a leader because I always led by example," and asked, "Did you need to be held by the hand? Because if so, maybe you can join the straight edge society and we can shave your head." He said that he watched Drew leave this company and then saw you return bigger and better. You won the Royal Rumble. You headlined WrestleMania. Now I'm coming back and trying to do the same thing. Why would you be upset about that? I'm not a demon because when I'm pushed, I'm Satan himself. And I'm a really nice guy until it's time not to be. And I'm here to win the Royal Rumble and headline WrestleMania. So Drew points out, I've already headlined WrestleMania when you haven't. And I stepped up when this company needed me, when the world needed us. And when the going gets tough, Punk gets going. And if you're the devil, I'm going to exercise you in the Rumble because I'm in it too. And I'm going to headline WrestleMania, but this time I'm doing it for myself. So Punk says, I'm going to lead by example and leave before I knock your teeth out, because no one, not you, not Seth, not Cody, is going to stop me from winning the Rumble. And just for you, I'm going to throw you out last. Dude, this was just a great segment to start the show.
So great. And I feel like Punk probably called his shot. Like, I think that's probably the scene you might see at the very end here, with Punk winning by throwing out Drew last. I could certainly see these two coming down to the final two, because I think Drew feels that hot right now. My best character of 2023. I thought he was amazing in this segment. They've suddenly added another heavily anticipated matchup to their already growing roster of matches that this
could be night 3 of WrestleMania.
Enough. Yeah. Would that be the real main event now? Night
WrestleMania 3? Week.
But like last week they just added The Rock versus Roman Reigns. Potentially, I mean, The Rock versus whoever, right? Cody versus Roman is still out there, of course.
I'll tell you, if Punk wins the Rumble, this could be his reason for Elimination Chamber, is like Drew and Punk in that at that February show.
You could do it there. Yeah, now you throw Drew into the mix, and Drew versus CM Punk is suddenly a match that feels very main event worthy on any of those shows. Maybe not night 2 of WrestleMania, but an Elimination Chamber main event, certainly. I actually felt like this was a really interesting pairing, because to me, Drew McIntyre is a much more of a CM Punk character than CM Punk is right now. He is the guy who is so full of rage, and he's never satisfied, and he brings it out through I think this sort of intensity on the microphone. He's always after somebody because he always feels like he's being wronged, and he always feels like he's being targeted. And if you look at it at a certain way, maybe much like the Phil Brooks of old, he is always somebody who has somebody else to blame but himself. So I found this dynamic very interesting, because I tend to find myself, again, agreeing with Drew McIntyre a whole lot more, whereas CM Punk, I feel, is continuing to have issues trying to hang on to this voice of the voiceless character and this reputation that he's been known for. Since coming back to the WWE, it feels like he's been anything but. We hear baby faces on this roster, like a Seth Rollins specifically, pretty much call him out for being a hypocrite. He is coming across right now much more like Dwayne Johnson, coming in, taking a spot from a younger guy. And not necessarily coming in because he's hungry to, want to make a name for himself in the way like a Drew McIntyre might have been when he, busted his ass on the indies before making it here. So I, again, feel like, number one, this is a very hot segment. You got like a real feeling of like tension between the two, but I think the ultimate form of CM Punk continues to be as a heel who is embracing maybe a lot more of this sort of like heel, like these criticisms from people in the locker room, like Drew McIntyre.
Well, that's fine to be planting all this stuff. Now would not be the time to be getting to that destination. But come the summer, like when the bloom is like this is still he's still got the brand new car smell when you
I don't even
come
think
off the lot.
Personally, I don't even know if it's intentional, John, like right now. I think that's the direction they can ultimately pivot towards because it feels more natural for Punk. But I just see Punk right now in these sort of promos, especially against somebody like a Drew McIntyre, as kind of tough to buy. Like they don't feel as genuine and as authentic as like, the CM Punk I'm used to because the backstory doesn't add up.
Well, I think what you like about these characters is that they're trying to present like these as close to authentic stories with probably some dramatization attached to it, but it should be like we're kind of following the crowd's cue of like where do they go with this, and instead of dictating to the crowd, which was sort of like the MO for so long, instead it's like, okay, see where the audience takes us. Like here was this crowd, like Drew has clearly been presented in like this, I wouldn't even say subtle heel light, like a pretty distinct heel light, but with logic attached to it. And when he
with very good reasons for
exactly, and you can see like there is a divide there because when he said, "I'm going to leave," this crowd wasn't cheering. They do not want this man to leave. So it's like you have to leave it open to that. My last question on this is: how about months and months of story, all culminating here, and one of the left field picks revealed himself to be the devil. He said it right here on national television.
Was it such a left field pick? I feel like there are plenty of people that were still suggesting it, even after seeing him on at Survivor Series. CM Punk is the devil. I'll tell you what,
they ran with this as his nickname on television, the devil, CM Punk.
Yeah. I thought that was a great line from Punk. It was great. I'm not the devil, I'm Satan himself, and I thought that was the most real thing that CM Punk said in this promo. I'm a very good guy. I'm a very nice guy until it's time not to be a nice guy. And we know this about CM Punk. He could be your most loyal friend in the entire world, but if you get on his bad side, he will be your biggest enemy. And there are plenty of examples of that.
So there you go. Oh, excellent segment. I thought this was the best thing on the show tonight. And this was a good episode of Raw, but I thought like the show quality wise, like this first 10 minutes or so was just tremendous. Then we had the post Kevin Dunn segment here. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa doing a walk and talk backstage on their way to the ring. And Ciampa explaining that it is the 19-year anniversary of his first match in 2005. And DIY is going to fight for what they want. And what they want are the tag titles. It's must win. Their New Year's resolution is to become tag team champions.
Something new.
Sure. Yeah. I like this.
Yeah.
This was very Megan O'Leary-esque off of a UFC broadcast.
A nice walk and talk into Gorilla. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that might have been new, and maybe that might have been indicative of a new creative direction. However, I don't know if you noticed, but like during the Nakamura Cody backstage segment, you saw plenty of shaky cam. Okay. And we know Kevin Dunn is not back there anymore, yet shaky cam still exists. So who do we blame exactly for shaky cam?
Whoever the disciples are, I guess. I mean, this is going to be, I mean, there's like, you're not going to see just a complete abandonment of what has been presented as like, this is how we produce television as well on top of it. I will say, and sometimes we're like probably watching with too close of a focus. But it was very notable, the fact that when they showed that recap with Becky Lynch from last week, like they emphasized the blood and like shot the face of Becky with the blood. It's not like it was in black and white.
Well, it's the whole story. right? And you pointed it out. It was a legitimate hard away blood from Becky, but I mean, boy, did it come at a
But they're
very
running
fortunate.
with it in a smart way. Like they're crediting it with being the punch, even though
Mhm.
it happened a few moments before that. But that's fine. I mean,
It was the most
added to
fortunate
the drama, and now they're going to benefit from it as like this was the result of the punch.
It was the most fortunate place for them to possibly have blood appear in a match. Yeah.
Finn Balor against Tommaso Ciampa. We have a Fez press by Ciampa, and then he chases Balor around and gets blocked by Damian Priest, who then distracts him on the apron, and Ciampa is sent off the apron into the desk. Go through the commercial break. We get a Project Ciampa for a 2 count. Balor catches him with a sling blade and shotgun, but misses with the coup de grace. And when Priest gets on the apron, Ciampa nails him. Gargano pulls down Priest, and Ciampa comes off the apron with a knee. Balor kicks the rope into the groin of Ciampa, and as Balor goes for a vertical suplex, Gargano trips Balor, allowing Ciampa to land on top and pin Balor in 8 minutes and 16 seconds.
Good match, I felt, between these two NXT legends. This was not, I think a takeover level match by any means. This was a Raw TV match designed to build to a tag team title program between the two afterwards. I thought it effectively involved Gargano and Priest, and effectively sets you up for a future title match after they get by Dom and JD next week.
Jackie Redmond is with Becky Lynch, and she states that Nia Jax put her full weight into that punch, but I got myself up and I walked to the back, and I didn't have to go to the hospital, so I was already ahead of where I was the last time I was struck by her. And I'm declaring myself for the Royal Rumble, and this tells me either Nia is getting weaker or I'm getting stronger. And maybe this isn't the end. Perhaps it is just the beginning.
Right. So the fact that she's not in the hospital means there's a moral victory here for her.
That's it. She walked away from this car crash, and she was all in one piece. Moral victory. This is someone that is certainly she should
optimist.
She should give advice to like fighters and stuff.
Yeah. Clear promise of a rematch here. So program continues.
Then we got a plug for the Jackie Redmond show on the NHL YouTube channel later this week with CM Punk as her guest.
Yeah, the man loves hockey.
He'll be chatting hockey this week.
Mm-hmm.
Kofi Kingston, Ludwig Kaiser. They replayed Vinci's injury from last week, and noting he's going to be out for several weeks. So for this 1 week, Kaiser is all by himself, and he's going to take it out on Kofi Kingston. But they do know Gunther is coming back next week. Crowd was behind Kofi Kingston, chanting for him. Kaiser ducked a Trouble in Paradise, and then is sent to the floor, catches Kingston with a forearm, and then sends Kingston into the break. We come back. Kingston lands a trust fall, and then the running uppercut into the barricade by Kaiser misses. He crashes into the barricade, and both men get counted out in 8 minutes and 45 seconds. The crowd boos the finish, but they continue anyway with Kingston landing a dive. They continue striking one another, and then Kaiser gouges him in the eye. And when Kaiser gets back body dropped, he comes back, and it's the return of the evil office chair, which gets thrown into the face of Kofi. He goes down. Michael Cole is thinking that this could be fatal, and Kaiser continues with a ton of aggression. And as he's being pulled away, the man does the most athletic jog around this ring into a seated drop kick, and Kingston is laid out as the officials are swarming the ringside area to save this man from this office chair attack.
So they're playing off of the Vinci concussion, basically, by having Kaiser try to give Kofi a concussion via something like an office chair. And I thought they were actually very effective in giving Kaiser a very serious and darker tone here. I mean, throughout his sort of existence, he's sort of been he's been great, but he's also been a bit of a comedic or comical character, like very over the top accent. Was involved in like storylines with Maxine, and was taking like
what happened to that? Did he just
dropped it?
Realize this isn't going anywhere
for the best
in Maxine?
Yeah, maybe for the best. And now instead, like, they're using this very unfortunate injury to Vinci to give him a much more serious tone. And I thought tonight was very effective here in having him act out this way.
And then he was caught by Jackie Redmond in the back, and he screams that it was Kofi's fault. He's the reason I'm the only one here carrying the weight of Imperium on my shoulders. He took the head of Vinci, so I took his.
Yeah, very, very good, aggressive promo here from Kaiser.
Yeah, good promo, and I was glad that he got some speaking time in addition to just the angle here. Although I don't think you can really put Gunther's absence on Kofi's shoulders. I mean, man had a baby. That Kofi had nothing to do with that, I don't think.
Don't start rumors, John.
Michael Cole is in the ring, brings out Nia Jax, who says she was not shocked with her win last week. She's more focused now and threatens to break Michael Cole's face. She's going to win the Royal Rumble and then come for either Rhea Ripley or Io Sky. So that prompts Rhea Ripley to come down and reminds Nia Jax that she eliminated her last year in a Royal Rumble surprise that no one remembered until this was brought up.
I guess that might have been her tryout, I guess.
Well, she was in the Rumble, and then everyone's like, is she coming back? And then she disappeared for months and then came back properly. But yes, she was in the Rumble last year. And she says that Rhea notes Becky Lynch isn't Rhea Ripley, which maybe that is planting a seed for something as well. And she said that she doesn't own this division, warns her about coming for her title if she wins the Rumble. And Jax reminds Rhea that I put you on your ass when you came back. And if you're too scared you're too scared to face me. So when I do win the Rumble, I'm going to choose you and you won't be able to avoid me any longer.
Mm-hmm. Is that it? Is that it?
No. I was just going to wonder which, we only have so many cards. Where are all these matches going to take place? I feel like we're building up a lot of matches.
It's true. Yeah. So, after this, I felt like there was enough of a reaction here, in particular for Rhea Ripley. Like she's already been cheered as a babyface, but I would say her roster of opponents recently hasn't really elicited much memorable reaction, I would say, because I mean, it's, there are people that everybody just doesn't really take seriously. It's like Raquel, it's Shayna, it's Zoe, it's whoever. But for whatever reason, people really hate Nia Jax. And when you pair somebody,
they booked her very strong. Like they've come in and there was no like 50-50 booking with her and putting her over Becky. Like that was the right call for last week for where they're going. And like, there's no need to beat Nia until it means something. And they're at a point now where it will mean something, whoever beats her first.
And exactly. And who's it going to be? I mean, we have been discussing perhaps Rhea Ripley defending her championship at Elimination Chamber, but man, I think you might have enough for a title match. I'm not necessarily going to say main event, especially if Dwayne might be on that show, but like a Nia Jax versus Rhea Ripley singles match inside that stadium in Perth, I think will be massive and might, outside of Becky Lynch, be the best opponent Rhea Ripley could have for a babyface crowd.
Possible. They've got options. They've definitely got options. So a good segment here for
I think Nia, like in hindsight, has been a very strong pickup for them. Again, her skills haven't necessarily gotten much better, but I think she just seems to inspire reactions from the audience in ways that much of the current women's roster doesn't. And I think she's been very effectively utilized for both Becky and now Rhea.
They recap The Rock's appearance last week, and then Jackie interviews Cody Rhodes, but he's jumped by Nakamura. We got the shaky cam, and they're pulled apart, and then it is informed that this will now be a street fight tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And they went all out. The graphic that they made,
they did.
Yeah, very cool. I had to update the graphic after I saw this.
It looked great. Yeah.
Katana Chance and Kayden Carter defending the women's tag titles against Piper Niven and Chelsea Green. Wade Barrett was asking Michael Cole about his knowledge of EDM fests, and Michael Cole would not even entertain this small talk. It's like, nothing. I don't know anything about these. So we have the entire women's division was watching this on one monitor in the back. We had Baszler and Stark, Tegan Nox and Natalya, Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, and Maxine and Ivy Nile, all crammed around this TV. This was their work division for the evening to come and watch this match. Niven saves Green from the after party early on. This was the pre-party, and then runs Chance into the buckle. They get the heat on her. Then eventually after the break, Carter gets the tag, and they stun Green on the turnbuckle, and Carter lifts her on the shoulders on the turnbuckle for a super Rana by Chance off the turnbuckle. This looked nuts. And then we get a wheelbarrow into a backflip, but Green gets her knees up on Chance. Green hits the Rough Rider, which I guess is now just a regular part of her repertoire. The Unprettier gets countered, lung blower, senton combo onto Carter, but Chance makes the save, and the crowd's getting into these saves. Niven hits a Uranagi out of the corner, and then Niven climbs for the Vader bomb onto Chance, but Carter pulls out her partner and trips Green, who falls down onto her front and then rotates into position where Niven is not looking at where she's going and Vader bombs her partner by mistake.
It was very comical. I mean, completely in terms of physics, improbable, but very comical in a Looney Tunes way.
I mean, if you ever like take my leg out from under me and I fall face first and then I just flip right over, I mean, I would be worried that like I'm having some kind of like allergic reaction to move my body in that way. But I mean, this was it was a very funny.
It was very funny
ending here. And then they take out Niven with a lung blower, and then they hit the keg stand on Green to retain the titles in 9 minutes and 50 seconds. I really enjoy these two as a tag team, Chance and Carter. I think they're the best option. They have fun matches on television, and hopefully they can just continue to just, they don't have to be like significant. It would be great if they had some significant stories for this tag division, but I'm fine with them just coming out and having these like 10-minute matches where Carter and Chance just get to do a lot of cool gymnastic stuff with a cool base that you have in Carter.
I think they need something more than we like to go to EDM fests, you know, like
that's all you're getting, Wade. This is
the
limit, okay? They
need like some sort of like drug scandal, you know, like you know, hey, you went to an what reputation do people have at, I guess, you know, at these EDM fests? I don't know. They need something, okay? Something spicier than just we like to go and have fun. What kind of fun exactly? You know?
Maybe someone plants drugs on one of them.
Sign me up for it. But this was a great reaction to the team tonight. And I think having the titles on them in some, like, you never want to like have the titles make the team, but in some cases, I guess you need some sort of start. And in
this is your key to getting matches on this show is you got to be either defending the titles or challenging for the titles.
Exactly. And having the titles on these two at least now gives the audience it tells them that, hey, we should probably take this team seriously. And the audience took them seriously. They reacted well to all their signature spots. I think the tandem offense is really the biggest thing that sets them apart. And I think they have the potential to be a much maybe smaller, but like a version of like a Young Bucks style type of, you know, team where it's just the crazy pace, a lot of like flashy signature moves. And I mean, I hope that they can deliver some semblance of maybe that for this division. I thought Chelsea and Piper, if this was the last time that they're teaming up together, they probably went out with the best match that I've seen them in. That's not saying a whole lot because they're not a team that's known for their in-ring, but this was, I thought, a very good quality matchup that got the crowd up.
You think this is it for the team? The Vader bomb gone awry?
Potentially. I mean, I think there's potential in them, like maybe still as like a backstage, you know, comedic tandem. And maybe they built up enough value that like they should be putting over other teams in the division before breaking up. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they went their separate ways.
Then we had the R-Truth video where this is like this sentimental music with some copyright-free images that we have here. R-Truth talks about being born in North Carolina and remembering when the doctor held him as a baby. And we get a doctor holding a small baby where it reads dramatization underneath it. He knew from that moment that one day he would be part of the Judgment Day. And we get shots of the Judgment Day as he states, we've been through a lot together. We're a family. And they show him like photoshopped into all these like various photos where the Judgment Day are posing on Abbey Road, where R-Truth is inserted into all of these photos. I mean,
even green screened in footage.
Oh, these are just tremendous. Then we have like a family photo of them. And then the best is he's on the cover of the Judgment Day VHS, which I was hoping he was going to mention. Occurred 3 weeks after WWF Breakdown in Hamilton, Ontario, which will be reviewed this Thursday on Rewind Away in the after the ending to the main event. And then He stated that Judgment Day, their motto is live, laugh, and love. And this was my favorite R-Truth segment I have ever seen this man do. And he has had some entertaining segments. I thought this was the best. It was punctuated by the fact that they cut to the Judgment Day. And part of me really wants to believe that they were watching this for the first time and told to react naturally to the video because Damian Priest was about to break on live television.
I couldn't imagine that they actually saw it, because I think they would have broken. Like I think all the members would have broken if they actually saw it. This was very funny. It was very well done. You didn't even mention, John, Tom and Nick Mysterio.
Oh, dude, he mentions his family. Even Tom and Nick Mysterio. And who was the one he never met? It was even though I never met Tom, but Tom's his brother.
He never met Nick. I guess he
didn't meet Nick.
He thinks this
Tom
dude's name is Tom.
Nick Mysterio was the best, dude. Like the
this is a t-shirt. This Live, Laugh, Love.
They should make that with the names and add and Tom and Nick on it for
Lovely.
the R-Truth shirt. Like
Yes.
You've already got the name shirt. Just add 2 more to it. I mean, dude, R-Truth has now officially become like this. He has gotten so over in this Judgment Day story that like
he's Sami Zayn and
the Miz, he was by far like got the biggest reaction of like anyone out there.
He's Sami Zayn in the bloodline. You know, he's maybe not that status, but like he's certainly approaching it. And I think that's certainly the intent. You know, as we've discussed like in the weeks prior, his inclusion into the Judgment Day, this ultra serious, like brooding emo group, brings a great deal of levity to the Judgment Day, and actually makes the Judgment Day far more dynamic and interesting. Especially because he presents a path towards a babyface turn for any member in the group, and we're probably thinking Damian Priest at this point. So what, you know, please carry on with the segment recap, because there were a lot of interesting seeds planted as well.
Yeah, Damian Priest stays like Rhea is pissed and says this needs to end, and Priest says, "Yeah, but that was pretty good quality." And Priest says, "When it comes time, I'll handle R-Truth." And yes, I think to that point, this is Damian Priest's like we talked about at some point, like he finally stands up for JD McDonagh. I think that train has left the station, and now you have like by far the most sympathetic figure of this group is R-Truth, and that is Damian Priest's bridge to leaving this group and standing up for R-Truth at the end of this, that the audience will just embrace. So Rhea then brings up DIY and if they're concerned, and Balor's response is DIY, they'll need CPR, MRIs, and EMTs.
See,
so
clearly
the comedy was all reserved for R-Truth's video package, and no one was left to work with Balor for this comeback.
I think Balor should have read that without maybe like he should have just been showed a cue card so he could read that live on air, so we could see his natural reaction, because I guarantee you he probably would have cringed a bit reading those lines.
And then you had Priest and Rhea, who continue to have friction between them, where Priest denies that Drew is his enemy, despite the cash-in attempt last week, and Rhea having the prior work agreement with Drew, and then he brings up Nia Jax to Rhea. So we are continuing the problems between Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. But this video was excellent. It was really funny.
It was very good. And you know what? It really has not taken the serious edge off of Judgment Day at all. Like they were able to go right from that R-Truth video to continuing to play with all the interesting character dynamics you have going on here. You have whatever's going on between Priest and Rhea. You have tension obviously between Priest and Drew McIntyre that they continue to be setting up. Now Rhea and Nia, Balor and Priest versus DIY, CPR, you know, MRI. And you continue to have, I think, JD be the butt of like R-Truth's jokes that I think makes JD a lot more interesting than without. So they're doing really well with all of this.
The Miz against JD McDonagh, Dominic, Tom, and Nick are in the corner. And R-Truth shows up, and dude, this place goes nuts for R-Truth. Like he was one of the big stars on the show. Like he got one of the biggest reactions on this show. And JD is rolling out to regroup. Miz calls for his big balls, but the skull-crushing finale gets stopped. Dominic attacks behind the referee's back, and then we get JD with a slingshot into a corkscrew in the ring. The it kicks by Miz, and then he drives his knee into JD's knee, works on the knee, applies the figure four, JD's to the rope, and as Truth is talking to Dominic and JD, it distracts them enough for Miz to drop kick JD into Dominic on the floor, rolls in JD, and wins with the skull-crushing finale in 12 minutes.
So now they've beaten them twice. At least the tandem of Awesome Truth and JD. And I suppose if you're trying to put the heat on R-Truth as the reason why JD continues to lose all his matches and get in trouble with the Judgment Day, this is the right, sort of response. I thought the match went a bit too long, considering it was really just ultimately undercard comedy, but I am enjoying, and the fans seem to be really enjoying this R-Truth Judgment Day stuff.
And Miz should just cling to R-Truth. It's Mania season. Ride the hot hand. R-Truth is going to get something at WrestleMania, like whether he wins the gimmick battle royal, or not the gimmick battle royal, but whatever it is, the
Andre
royal, the Andre battle royal.
They should bring back the gimmick battle royal, really.
Okay, perhaps. Ripley is pissed off about this with Balor and Priest, states this needs to end with R-Truth. Seth comes out and notes that he has never gone into WrestleMania as a champion. He's never headlined, but that changes this year. It's the year of Seth Rollins. I took a title that didn't even exist a year ago, and I made it the most important in the industry, and asks, who am I going to beat at WrestleMania? I think 6 people chanted CM Punk. It was a very, very light chant, and it was enough for Seth in his dreams, maybe. I think they were really hoping for a much louder response to this because it was lukewarm at best.
Do you make anything of that? The fact that this wasn't a louder reception for CM Punk?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I would have expected, like if there was I expected more of a reaction of people just like chanting something, and he let it sink in for the audience to kind of get the chant going, but it never came in any.
Because I can't see really any other names that I feel the audience would be clamoring for instead of CM Punk to go for Rollins championship.
Well, his initials are JM, because then we got the Jinder reveal. Out comes Mahal, and no one can believe he is back. He says, last week, I became more of a revolutionary in 5 minutes than you have, Seth, in the last 5 years. These fans are degenerates, and Rollins has instilled no change. You throw childish tantrums off the air, and I deserve a shot. I've been overlooked. I beat Randy Orton with ease. So tonight was just like randomly name dropping Randy Orton to state your case. Rollins says, you're right. We have overlooked you, but we've done it on purpose because we're trying to forget about you. But he does give him credit for coming back after Rock put his balls in a vice last week and dares Mahal to take a swing. Jinder shakes his head no, and Seth just looks at him. Same old Jinder. And as he goes to leave, he gets jumped by Jinder, and then Rollins fights back, and Jinder tries for the Colossus, but Mahal is able to. He can't hit the Colossus, and then rolls out of the way of a stomp. And my first thought was, does Seth have no opponent for the Royal Rumble? Are we really going to do this? But alas, this is going to be on television next week, which this guy needs a match at the Rumble. It is possible they do something next week to give some kind of non-finish. This could be his Rumble opponent because they have no one set up for him in 3 weeks' time.
It's possible, yeah. I suppose the Rumble is one of those shows where
this would replace Brock Lesnar and Bob Holly as your title match at the Rumble in terms of who's the coldest opponent we can find.
Yeah. I don't think he needs to defend it. If we're going by 2 Rumbles, that's already 2 hours, and judging by War Games, I don't think they have more than 3 matches on the undercard, perhaps. So I don't even think it's necessary. I don't think Rollins needs to even be on the Rumble. But for a TV segment, maybe to take advantage of some of the buzz that Jinder Mahal might have had over the past week through the Rock segment. I mean, whatever. I don't get too mad at it. It's a 1 week build for hopefully a 1 week program.
How many views is this going to do on YouTube, this segment?
I think this will shatter records. Yeah.
Well, we shall see. When we talk about the era of number of minutes consumed of the era and it coinciding with the addition of the Women's Royal Rumble, how lucky are we that the Royal Rumble did not become a 2-night event? When you think about it,
man. Are you so sure that might not be in the cards for the future?
No, I'm not. Like you could easily fill out 2 nights when you're talking about a Rumble on each night, and you could do a title match on each night. Like they could absolutely do that. I'm just thinking about it now. I'm like, I'm amazed that they didn't do it at that time.
Yeah.
Like it's a long show when you think about it, with like the 2 Rumbles and such, and how much more you can even fit on this show. So there you go. That the 7-day countdown until Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal. Otis against Ivar. This is my candidate for match of the week so far.
Is that so? Really?
Oh, this was the best 4 minutes. This was the best 4-minute match I've seen this year. Maybe that'll be a category, sub 5-minute match of the year. We need to incorporate that. So this was set up earlier in the day. Spinning elbow is hit by Otis. He's got Tozawa and Maxine in his corner. And then Ivar does a reverse cross off the middle rope, and Otis catches him and turns it into a world's strongest slam, which this guy could have done a 630 and it wouldn't have gotten the reaction that this did. The crowd is into all the big man spots. Ivar hits the caterpillar, but then eats a spin kick, and Ivar goes to the top for his doom salt and pins Ivar in 346. This could have gone a few more minutes.
Pins Otis.
Pins Otis, sorry. Yes, Ivar gets the win. And then Tozawa steps up to Ivar, and we got the greatest exchange on Monday night, second only to CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, where Tozawa yelled, "You think you're big?" And Ivar looked at him and he yelled, "I'm big, little man." I'm big, little man.
I guess like maybe when they're shouting these things, they only kind of half expect podcasters to pick up on them and scrutinize them.
Go back and listen to this, and the
was it that funny?
Conviction
really?
in their voice. You think you're big? I am big, little man.
I'm glad you got so much joy out of these lines.
I got great joy out of this. Anyway, I thought this was a fun 3.5-minute match.
It was a very fun 3.5-minute match. I mean, unlike maybe other meat matches we've seen, this wasn't just these guys like punching each other. This was some agility thrown in there, especially in Ivar's case. They continue to make that moonsault feel like a real highlight of these shows, and I thought it was a very appropriate length, just 2 big men doing very impressive moves, and I thought it never overstayed its welcome. So Tozawa seems like they're putting effort into pushing Ivar versus Tozawa, and I don't know. Are you interested?
You think he's big?
I'm big, little man.
Jackie interviewed Jey Uso, who could not stay still at all. I guess that's his thing. He's going to win a singles title this year, but then gets approached by Bronson Reed, who refers to him as Jimmy Uso's younger brother. Burn. He said, "I also plan to win a title this year, so don't get in my way." Like, dude, do you know how many titles are in this company? We can both eat. Eat?
Yes, eat. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. This was an odd segment to get
Jey Uso's definitely cooled down a little bit, and we're just sort of in that awkward Rumble period where there's really no dance partner with him. And so Reed feels like a bit of a step down. But I also feel like they could have made a much better case for Jay actually winning the Rumble. Like they haven't really pushed any narrative with him at all.
He hasn't even announced he's in, has he?
I don't know. Maybe you would expect an interaction with Jimmy in the Rumble or something, but
that's what I expect. One of them eliminates the other. Maybe Jimmy eliminates Jay.
I mean, they could be purposely keeping him low key just so that we might be surprised by that interaction. I'm not exactly sure, but not much going on, at least on TV, with Jay right now.
So next week they announce Rollins and Jinder for the title, Miz and R-Truth against Finn Balor and Damian Priest, non-title match, DIY against Dominic and JD as they move up the ranks, and Gunther returning. No better place for Gunther to return than North Little Rock, Arkansas.
Maybe we'll cut quite the promo.
Main event is Shinsuke Nakamura and Cody Rhodes in a street fight. All this crowd wanted was tables. They would get them. They also got a broom and a kendo stick. Cody takes control of the kendo stick, hits a disaster kick, and then Cody brings out the table for the huge pop, but Nakamura stops him with nunchucks. And Nakamura misses Cody with the mist and takes out timekeeper Berkeley Ottman.
Now there's a name generator name, Berkeley Ottman. I mean, it's a real person. Yes, I'm familiar.
Yeah,
but,
this guy's related to Fred Ottman. Is it his son? I think.
Is that right?
I'm pretty sure they're related. I know this. Let's see if it's his two sons, Berkeley and Bo.
Okay, well, maybe the
Shockmaster
has to
timekeeper, and there's a relationship because Cody's uncle is Fred Ottman.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so there's a
maybe the Shockmaster is going to come out for revenge against Shinsuke Nakamura.
I don't know about that. Maybe the Shockmaster could have had subtitles.
Yes,
you can totally see Fred Ottman in this.
You're right.
Here.
You can.
Yeah. Anyway,
poor Berkeley.
Dude took the mist like great. It was like the red mist, and it looked cool. See this woman in the front row that with they were ready for the mist here. They masked up.
I don't know if this was from this show because I don't know if there are many people wearing masks these days at these events, John.
Okay. Yeah. We continue on nonetheless. So timekeeper Berkeley Ottman is taken out, and we go through a second break. Nakamura is destroying Cody with chair shots, and then he fires back, sets up a table in the ring, and Nakamura places Cody onto the table and drives through with the double knees off the turnbuckle. Wade notes that Nakamura is full of poisonous intent. Not just mist, but intent.
That's why it's red.
Nakamura gets out another table and runs Cody into this chair that's set up in the corner, sliding German and knee off the buckle. But then Cody stops the Kinshasa with the pedigree, hits a 2 count, Cody cutter, and then Cody gets up and just roars. He just roars to the crowd. And I think that the stand-in timekeeper was probably roaring too, because dude, they had like a minute to get off the air. And he sidesteps the Kinshasa, hits the Nakamura, crashes through the table, and takes the crossroads. And Cody wins in a slick, breezy 24 minutes. This was way too long. And I didn't feel that this reached like that. I thought like, okay, we're going to go slow. And then that last like 4 minutes, they're just going to do all the table spots and some near falls. I didn't think it really escalated to that level. If anything, I thought the finish was a bit abrupt, just of like all this selling by Cody and like, boom, sidestep, crossroads, because they had to get off the air. They were like running, like they finished with like 30 seconds to go.
Well, if they didn't miss the timekeeper, maybe this would have been a better pace match. I agree with you. That was maybe my principal complaint about the match. I feel like they've done such a great job building this up, between the graphics and Shinsuke Nakamura's promos, to the point where like this felt like a really like good TV main event, like a better than average main event for Raw with the significant
built
story.
Up like a pay-per-view match, and
maybe that's why they decided to give so much time to it. But the content of the match itself, I don't think. I mean, 5 minutes you could have definitely shaved off of it, maybe even a bit more. It was a bit slow going, especially this late into the show. I thought by the time they got to some of the stunts, like the misting or with the tables, that's when maybe it picked up. But I don't think it was no DQ enough to perhaps maximize the sort of like potential the stipulation might have had for 24 minutes. So it did drag a bit, but good match overall. Like it's the type of match that I think delivered a level of finality to the feud. And again, maybe Brett Ottman coming for revenge. Sorry, what's the Berkeley?
No, you're right. Like Brett is the brother of Berkeley.
Okay. Well, Brett Ottman, yeah, Brett and
the
Berkeley.
Men come.
Yes. I guess they would be natural disasters. There you go. Hey, natural disaster kick. Beautiful natural disasters, Cody. And
you keep running with this. I think you've got a pitch in you for this.
So Brian's pointing out, I guess they are cousins, these two, this Berkeley and Cody. Would that make them cousins?
We said this, yes.
Okay. Well, I didn't know what the relation was.
Well, Cody is if Fred Ottman is his uncle, yes, that would make them cousins. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yes. Well, hey, there's a team right here.
Potentially, yeah. Look, Cody really wanted to be in this photo.
Well,
okay. Overall, I thought this was a pretty good edition of Raw. I thought that the Punk Drew segment was excellent. I was greatly entertained by the R-Truth video. Wrestling wise, I would state that the main event did not reach my my expectation level for a match that was built up for several weeks. But I mean, the crowd got into like the tables and stuff like that. And I mean, overall, like it feels like they are just they're building the Rumble well. Like it's not the usual case where all of a sudden it's the week of the Rumble and we're going to make cases for people going into it. It's like you're setting up different people, different scenarios, and what is at stake by winning the Rumble, which they should be hammering that pretty solid.
I felt like Punk today like gave you a pretty good sort of rundown of like who the main candidates are. Well, I suppose maybe main candidates for his program, but like, okay, Punk is definitely maybe the favorite. You have Drew McIntyre now, who I think, pushed him right up there with tonight's promo. Dwayne Johnson.
It's Punk, Cody, and then like a bit of a gap, but Drew would be like that next level.
Well, I would add Dwayne as well.
Sure, if you think he might show up as a surprise or something. Yeah, and you're going to have that speculation going into the Rumble, sure. Shows up, does a spot.
Yeah, I think they're doing really well right now with Raw. Like Raw compared to SmackDown does feel like the A show at the moment. It just feels like there's a lot more interesting things going on. They have I don't know, a higher level of star power, in my opinion, even with Roman Reigns on SmackDown. Roman doesn't do much on SmackDown, whereas Punk is heavily involved on the show. Cody's heavily involved on the show. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing heading to Mania season.
All right. They didn't go over John Ourand's forecast on Raw. Maybe they that's going to be Michael Cole slip that in there. Are we going to Amazon? Oh no.
What?
You know what? Now that we've reviewed Raw, I think before we go to feedback, let's just get our wits about us and talk off air for a second. I have something to tell you in private.
Okay, what should we do while we talk off air?
Just play something.
It is 2024, and tracking technology from advertisers, ISPs, and hackers is getting more sophisticated than many of us can understand. Something you can do to give yourself a bit more peace of mind this year is to protect your browsing by investing in a trusted VPN like NordVPN. Voted Best VPN for Privacy of 2023 by Security.org, Nord is one of the most established and reputable VPN providers in the field. NordVPN is also something I use every day to access geo-blocked online streaming services like AEW+. By far the best way of watching AEW programming commercial-free with on-demand access to AEW's entire TV archive. But perhaps the most value I've gained from using Nord has been the ability to unlock cheaper prices to online content from other parts of the world. Plus, when you sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling, you get 4 bonus months on top of all 2-year plans. That works out to $2.88 a month, so it's already paid for itself several times over. Again, $2.88 a month when you sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling. Check the link in the show description. Sign up with code postwrestling, get yourself some bonus months, and let NordVPN know you found them through us.
So you understand, I couldn't say that on the air.
Yes. I forgot to.
No, you didn't, because you sent me a message. So
I sent you a message, and then I forgot to continue to remind you of it as we were doing our review. But huge thank you to our sponsors on this podcast.
We love you all, even when we forget about you an hour in. But we now have feedback to get to, and if you have any super chats, you can send those in our way as well. Just don't ask us to like book a card. It's too late after midnight. I can't book the territory. So, with all due respect, let's go to feedback.
Forum.postwrestling.com, where all of our Post Wrestling Cafe patrons can post their feedback every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, basically every day, every night, forever. First, let's start off here with Manny from Pacoima. I'll start off, John. He says, another solid edition of Raw. The opening promo between Punk and Drew really made the Rumble feel big. And now with this added story, there will be eyes glued to see if Punk really leaves Drew for last in the Rumble. I loved Wade mentioning Kayden's time in Mexico, and Cole should have jumped in to mention she was in Angel Garza's La Rebellion in the Crash Lucha. But I guess he only knows about the Triple Tails. Shout out to R-Truth for delivering the segment of the year and for name dropping the greatest tag team in all of Mexico, Tom and Nick Mysterio. Andrade is no longer being advertised for his 2 GCW shows, which means that Triple H has robbed me, and I will no longer be able to see Andrade versus Gresham this Friday. I really enjoyed the best of show, and my pick for male wrestler of the year is Jacob Fatu, always delivering some great matches.
Okay. Yeah, and Andrade was supposed to be on the Friday show in Chicago, and he's now been replaced by Leo Rush. So it'll now be Leo Rush and Jonathan Gresham, which is not a bad replacement match as well. Mustafa Ali's on that show as well against Gringo Loco. But yeah, you can read into that whatever you will about Andrade being pulled and where he will be going next. But thank you as always to Manny from Pacoima. Next up, we go to Muggin. No significant storyline developments, but this show didn't mail it in. The Cody Shinsuke street fight was a pay-per-view length match. Not too bad about Jinder facing Seth. Not too mad about Jinder facing Seth for the world title. Triple H went deep into his callback bag for that matchup because he notes it happened in NXT a decade ago. The Punk McIntyre segment was aces, and I like how the Rumbles are having multiple potential winners instead of locking down to just 1 or 2 odds-on favorites.
Okay, this isn't a feedback from the forum, but I have to go to Anthony Brennan in the chat room. What did y'all talk about? Is there a third son of Shockmaster that he won't admit to? He's the odd man out.
Oh, that's great.
Very good, Anthony Brennan.
Good one, Anthony.
Hey, let's go up next to Annie Rude Balasubramanian. I hope I got that right. He says, I enjoyed just about everything on the show other than the Seth freaking and the Miz segments, which provided me with an opportunity to catch up on my emails. I wish they'd given Gable and Ricochet the TV time instead. I also miss Gunther and Sammy. Do you guys think the door is shut on Gable Gunther at Mania? The highlight of the show was the opening segment and the Drew Punk interaction. I love the fact that these are fleshed out characters who are worth investing your time in. Drew has been the MVP of Raw for me and is consistently the most compelling character in wrestling. 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, Gable versus Gunther is not something that they've really teased much at all.
I would say since they did like the title challenge and him wanting to go back towards it, they like Gable, they've taken such a like step back with overall. Like he is like it's Otis that's front and center, and like Tozawa's getting more focused than Gable. Like Gable just does like the backstage pep talks, and that's really what it's been limited to.
They could be just waiting, you know, like if it's a build towards a Rumble, I don't necessarily think you need to start that 3 months out, you know, for Chad Gable, 4 months out for Chad Gable. They might just be keeping him in the background so that eventually we're kind of forgetting about it until he takes that step forward. But I don't know. What do you see for Gunther if not Gable?
I don't know. I mean, they haven't really teased much with them. I mean, you could find somebody. I mean, there's no shortage of like good matches that you can have with him, but I guess you want to have somebody like the Gable. You could always resurrect that, like if they wanted to just cool things down. But there's been so little towards that. Yeah, I guess if you're looking on the Raw side, is there anyone that jumps out at you?
So you do have like different players now. You have a Jey Uso, you have a Sami Zayn, who doesn't really have an obvious program. Yeah. Jay, I suppose, might be Jimmy. Trying to think who else. Like Drew McIntyre is very much a heel right now, but you know, that's a pairing that I think they can always go back to, especially like if Drew ends up turning babyface. But yeah, we'll see. Slim Sieber sends a super chat here for $10. Thank you, Slim Sieber. He says maybe it's just watching under more of a microscope with Kevin Dunn leaving, but did it seem like Jackie Redmond was allowed to show a lot more personality tonight? Hard for me to tell. Like I don't really think so personally. Like I feel like she's about the same as usual.
I mean, we did get a timekeeper's name. So, I mean, that was something as well. I mean, it used to be, we didn't even get referees' names. So, you know, slow gains. Last one here is from Alexander, who was at the show live in Portland tonight. The highlight of the whole night was R-Truth. I don't think I've ever heard a crowd as hot for him as tonight. Jinder works as a TV foil for Seth. Nobody will believe any other contender for Seth until WrestleMania. Drew and Punk were great. Kaiser looked like a killer, and I genuinely enjoyed seeing The Miz win tonight. I've seen plenty of live shows in Portland, and tonight's crowd felt the biggest and the loudest. Happy I was part of it. Could you see Rhea and Nia at Elimination Chamber? Yeah, we talked about that. I mean, that's a possibility. That would be a very clear babyface heel dynamic for Australia. And in a nutshell, I could see that.
To create a big heroic moment for Rhea Ripley inside her home country, I think that's probably your best bet, more so than an Elimination Chamber would provide. Because I don't see her winning an Elimination Chamber. Actually, I do. I would see that. But it wouldn't be as like maybe triumphant. Again, you know what? They could still do Elimination Chamber, but with Nia and Rhea, maybe the final two, and that being sort of like a big moment of Rhea retaining. There are a lot of ways that they can go. That might actually be a more likely possibility, actually.
Well, this Elimination Chamber show, I mean, they could get Rhea and Nia, they'll get Rock and Reigns, and
the Fred Ottman and Shinsuke Nakamura, perhaps.
Oh man, could you imagine that? Yeah. Tugboat and Nakamura.
Chaos.
The bow tie. No,
right,
I'm
goodbye.
too tired. That's it, everyone. We're done. We're out. We are back later this week. Let's quickly chat about some of the shows. For the cafe this week, on Thursday, it is WWF Breakdown on Rewind Away from September of 1998. Steve Austin defending his WWF title against The Undertaker and Kane. A 1998 main event, if there ever was one. Plus the aforementioned Dustin Rhodes versus Val Venus and some WWF undercards from 1998. That was, there were some matches on
the Attitude Era was amazing, wasn't it?
We're going to talk about that on Thursday. So that's coming up. Breakdown. Friday night, we have Rewind, a SmackDown presented by Rogers, where the two of us will go over SmackDown. And then coming up Saturday, I will be doing a free show with John Cena covering Hard to Kill, while Way will be on the cafe with Kate from Montreal covering 3 hours of AEW programming. What did we throw Way into? He will be reviewing Collision and Battle of the Belts 9. Maybe you guys can reminisce about your favorite Battle of the Belts matches over 9 editions.
Will rank all 9 in order. Yes. Yeah. Hey, last thing here before we get out of here, I want to thank a lot of you guys, obviously, who have signed up recently to the Post Wrestling Cafe. We saw like a pretty healthy surge of new signups because of Wrestle Kingdom, I imagine. We also continue to see a pretty healthy surge of signups for the double tier, and that's pretty much primarily because of John's audio updates that he puts out there. We all know and appreciate the writing that John does on the website. Well, over the past several months now, it feels like he started to do those in audio form. And John Pollock, when he decides to do something, he goes all in, and he's essentially created these little like well-produced broadcasts, and those are at least like once every once in a while they're available for all tiers, but for the rest of the time they're available exclusively to our double and espresso tier patrons. So beyond that, we also like to thank those particular patrons with a video roll call at the end of all of our live broadcasts. So we should end that way right now.
Goodbye.